Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton at Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful May the 28th, 2020. Rondo Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, it's another day of anguish as we all live here in America. You think about over the 100,000 lives that were lost, Charlton, from this COVID-19 and the unrest that's going on in Minneapolis by the lack of action from the federal prosecutors and local prosecutors.
Yeah, we know there's a lot going on in this world, but that's why we love bringing it to you. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. Also, Big C Sports is powered by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you gotta have a smart TV, or you'll be sitting there looking at a still picture of Big C. I love making sure that we pay homage every show. Our Veterans Crisis Hotline, they are experienced in helping veterans and their loved ones get help. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. Also 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, Charlton, as we live every day thinking about the anguish and problems that are going on in America, our veterans have lived through that for decades, Charlton, and we're losing some 22 of those veterans a day to suicide. We give out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, and that's hopefully a way to help stem the tide of that. Our veterans need help in many, many ways, Charlton. We think about them being homeless. We think about them being destitute. And you know, suffering through mental illness, Charlton, is a horrific disease that people look at as an embarrassment. But it's not. I mean, so many people in America suffer through that, Charlton. When we think about our youth of America who suffer through mental illness, and unfortunately many of them have succumbed to suicide, Charlton. So every day that we give out the National Suicide Hotline prevention number, Charlton, hopefully we're helping out people in America find a way off of that suicidal ledge.
Got to do the best we can, Big C. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and they can get some help. Really happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, Direct TV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants. And when you reach out to them, just tell them that Big C sent you. The goal is simple: recruit 100 real estate brokers, put their property listings on TV just like McDonald's does it. Car dealerships do it, and sports teams are going to do it again as soon as they get the green light. And you can watch TV work for your real estate. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. If you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. That's bigcsports.pacwm.com. And you can get abreast of opportunities going on in the world of real estate. I want to take the time to say today is a beautiful day for a lot of high school kids all over the country, my son included. Congratulations on graduating from high school with honors. Really appreciate the hard work that you put in. And anything your heart desires, you can make it come true. Just keep working hard and making it happen. So Big C, wanted to say that for not only my son, but for all the kids out there that are graduating on this beautiful day, even though we had to do it from home because the schools are closed. Big C, your thoughts for anyone graduating high school, Big C?
Well, this has been a different year in every way, Charlton, as we think about graduates from high school, grammar school, college, Charlton, because the world had came to a halt as far as having, social gatherings and one of the most memorable days in many people's lives, Charlton. And so it's congratulations and everyone moving forward.
Everybody is definitely moving forward. I want to talk about a few things today. I I want to get also a little bit later in the show on what happened in Minneapolis, as a lot of people are dealing with that. But I want to start off with something that I think is almost, well, when you deal with billionaires and millionaires and they have this cat fight about who's going to pay for the tap, Big C, Major League Baseball Players Association, and they counter a proposal that Major League Baseball gave, saying that they want the players to give up more, but they don't want to give up more, so they propose a 100 games at a full prorated salary. If that makes any sense to you, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, a prorated salary is appropriate if you're going to reduce the games and you reduce the salary accordingly. But that's not what the owners are looking at, Charlton. They're looking at more of a 60-70% cut in salary for the players.
Yeah.
And they're not willing to open their books to show the players that they're not losing as much money as they're alleging.
Yeah.
You know, this goes in with any negotiation. And realistically, it's not up to the players to bail the owners out. The players make the game. It's not the owners that make the game. They own the facilities. They own the franchises, Charlton. But it's the players that the fans come out to watch. It's the players that the broadcasters are announcing what they're doing. They're not talking about what the owners is drinking up in his luxury suite, Charlton. So as we look at, people are going to say, how can the general public be empathetic towards the athletes in this time that we're living in, with so many people, over 40 million people unemployed in America, Charlton, in the last 3 months, people struggling to pay bills and all that. These athletes, that's the profession that they chose a long time ago.
Yeah.
It wasn't about the pandemic that made them professional athletes. It's just what happened during this time frame. The owners are the ones playing hardball, but I'm like with the players. I mean, why are you pressing to go out there and play, and you knowing you can't keep us all healthy?
Yeah, it's amazing because people are speaking up as they keep kicking that can down the road, or maybe not a can, but they're pushing the ball down the road. Major League Baseball proposed a call for pay reductions of top players' prorated salaries, which would be scaled to reflect the number of games played. In Major League Baseball's 82-game proposal, Los Angeles Angels star Mike Trout would be paid less than $6 million instead of the $19+ million that he received in prorated. Now, people say $6 million. There's 40 million people in unemployment line. They would gladly take the $6 million, but not if that's about a 70% pay cut from what you're expecting, Big C.
Well, but see, you got to understand, Major League Baseball did not create the unemployment pandemic that we have in this country.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to be pointing the finger at anybody, you pointed at the administration, the White House, who lagged on getting this done.
Yeah.
When we have the Senate who can pass an appropriation bill, Charlton, to fund America, that can give another stipend to every American citizen out there, Charlton, to help them through these hard times, because even with the country opening back up, it's not going to open up to full speed. And then when they're talking about playing baseball without fans in the stands, how are those people going to go to the game? So I don't even see those the general public complaining about what baseball players are making when they can't even afford or even get allowed to go into the game.
Yeah, how are you going to get, with 40 million unemployed, who is waiting to get that unemployment check to go cash it so you can watch guys who are making $1 million a month play baseball? I think everybody has to go through. You go through these times where it's foggy. You got to clear the fog, Big C. Sometimes you got to just do a timeout, or you go into the huddle and you come back out and you fix things.
You want to know what baseball did to clear the fog today, Charlton?
What's that?
Something that the owners are not going to come out there with. They terminated the contracts of 1,000 minor league baseball players today.
Yeah, that was horrible.
They're talking about hobbling and haggling with the major leaguers. They fired 1,000 minor league baseball players today. So they're on that unemployment line also, Charles. Think about that. All of a sudden, you get a pink slip, and the season hasn't even started.
Yeah.
If they terminate 1,000 contracts a day, and you think about the number of players who have toiled in the minor league for their entire life during their 20s, trying to make it to the major league.
Yeah.
And that's what they put their future on. Now they got to go out and try to find a job in a time where you can't even get a job in America.
Yeah. Well, everybody, if you're an owner, you're pro-owner. If you're union or employee, you're pro-union or employee. So everybody, that's why we have a court system and we have lawyers involved. I want to get your thoughts on something, because I know if you go back to your first contract that you signed, and there are guys who get agents to sign their contracts. I guess Scott Boras, he's one of the mega agents, if that makes sense. in the world of the sports universe. He's a guy that goes in with money bags and grabs a lot of money from teams and negotiates for players. So that's great if you are a player. Maybe not as great if you're an owner. But Scott Boras is telling his clients to refuse Major League Baseball's attempt to cut salaries during negotiations with the Players Association. He's claiming that financial issues caused by the coronavirus and their origins, that's a problem for management to deal with. But let me ask you a thought. Is Scott Boras willing to go to any one of his players that he signed and offer to give back some of the money he took from them for representing them? Dixie, your thoughts?
Well, but, in representing them, Charlton, that's why they got to be some of the highest paid players in baseball. If you look at the highest paid players in baseball, he represents 82% of them.
Yeah.
So the reason why baseball salaries are what they are is because of a Scott Boras. But, this is like going to any corporation in America, Charlton. And so when people are being called back to work, and think about it, if employers say, okay, since we can only do 25% capacity, we're going to need you to take a pay cut. We're going to need you to take a 70% pay cut because we can only do 25% capacity in this restaurant, so I'm not going to be able to pay you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all relative to where you are working. When we look at CEOs of companies, when you look at the airlines and the hotel industry, and you look at the people who are running those companies, are they going to be willing to take a 70, 80% pay cut, Charlton,
No.
because the airlines are not flying or the hotel rooms are not booked? So it's all relevant. And you're asking the baseball players. Now, if you ask the baseball players, so what are you going to do to the football players if you have a shortened football season? You're going to say, okay, we got to come in and do a pay cut with you guys. What about college football? When you look at all these coaches in college football, are you going to come in if you only have a 7 or 8 game schedule and say, hey, we need you to prorate what we were willing to pay you this year?
That's not going to happen.
Pay the full complement of game?
Yeah, well, we know.
It's a bad precedent that baseball is trying to set with its players, because it will be a ripple effect. You have to understand, baseball has the best union of all professional sports.
Yep.
So if this happens in baseball, it's going to be a ripple effect down through the NBA, NFL, NHL, Charlton, MSL, everybody. If baseball succumbs to this, professional sports as you know it will be gutted.
Yeah, and they're always trying to gut it, but they'll always got more money than they could ever use if they lived 100 lifetimes. And for Scott Boras, we're in a world where if you can make it happen, you've earned it. You go out and negotiate for it. If there's a verse in the Bible, I think it's in the book of James, that says you have not because you ask not. Well, Scott Boras represents 71 players on the active roster and injured list as of August 31st of last year. Among player representative firms, his firm has negotiated more than $1.2 billion in contracts. That's just during the offseason, Big C. I want him on my side. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that's what I said. Scott Boras is the face of baseball. If you want to make money in baseball, then you're represented by Scott Boras. Like I said, he has 82% of the highest paid players in Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
This is where the money flows. Owners hate to see Scott Boras showing up because they know they're going to end up giving, Harper $300 million. They're going to give Trout $227 million. They're going to give Arenado $286 million. These are the type of contracts that Scott Boras negotiates. So he has clout. Even the pitcher that was speaking today, I think it's Snedeker or whoever it was, talking about, Scott Boras represents him. He's making $32 million this upcoming season. And he works about 42 days out of the year.
Yeah. Well, everybody wants to get the money. Scott Boras has earned it. He didn't hold the gun. Well, I don't know if I wasn't there during the negotiation, but no one forced any owner collectively to get over $1.2 billion in negotiation just in the offseason. Big C, that meant none of those checks bounced, so the owners are doing good, but they still don't want to open up the book. What's the odds in Las Vegas that the owners, before we get baseball back, as they're begging for the players to take less money, what's the opportunity? Is it over 50% or under that they'll open up their books? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the number's in the minus. I mean, you look at all the professional leagues, Charlton, there's a thing called collusion that they all have. This is the reason why they can command what they command from the television rights that they give out to these companies to broadcast, Charlton. The owners, this is the reason why it's an exclusive club.
Yeah.
You got 30 guys who know each other, that look like each other, and they're not going to screw each other over.
Yeah.
And they make sure that everyone stays close. If an owner gets sued, Charlton, and he's going to lose the suit, they will settle it. They come together and they will settle it. This is the reason why they all have commissioners. The commissioner is just a spokesperson for the owner.
Yeah. Let me ask you a thought on agents. I know you probably had some things happen for you in the past, and you use a lawyer to go in and do the negotiation. Let me just get your feeling. What advice would you give to the athletes? Because not everybody's going to get it, Scott Boras. There's Lee Steinberg. There's a lot of agents out there. I know a couple of them myself, and it's a tough business. If anyone wants to see that business, I think the movie Jerry Maguire, it showed how agents and athletes get together. What advice would you give an athlete when it goes to having an agent and signing that contract? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the business has changed since I initially started playing, Charlton. The leagues actually control all the agents. It used to be agents could come up at random to anybody and pitch their spiel. Now you have to be registered with whichever league that you're representing a player in. You just can't walk in and say, hey, I'm representing so-and-so. You have to have a background check. You have to go through their finance department and their background, their police background check. Just like working on Wall Street. All the agents are regulated by the NFL, the Major League Baseball, NBA, and basketball. All of it. All the sports. NHL.
Well, I have the opportunity to interview an African-American sports agent, two of them, over the last year, and they said there's a lot of collusion that goes on even in that world. It's almost like the Rooney Rule in football, Big C. There's a good old boy pecking order that they figured it out too. There's a reason a lot of the top agents have a certain shade, if that makes sense to you. But it's all fair and love and war, and that's what's part of that business.
It's like having car dealerships. Everybody doesn't have a Mercedes. Everybody doesn't have a Cadillac, Charlton. There's Fords out there. There's Toyotas out there. And there's agents that rank just like that. You got the Mercedes-Benz of agents. You got the Rolls-Royce of agents. It's a matter where you fall in the pecking order, whether an agent will even represent you or not.
And speaking of that, I want to get in because agents make a lot of money for a lot of people. I want to talk about some of the most profitable sports leagues in the world and in professional sports, and people don't realize how much money is out there as everybody's doing the Big C. Pause, Big C. I was even listening to Wolf Spitzer on CNN earlier, and he said he wants to do the pause. I thought that was funny, but it's all fair and love and war. But I want to just get your thoughts, and then in the second half, I want to get into what's going on in Minnesota, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and because there's still some things that in the bottom of my gut, I just can't sleep at night if I knew about things and I say nothing about them. So, but the most profitable sports leagues, in every one of these leagues, they need some guys like a Scott Boras or like some of the other agents that I know. I'm not going to mention their names because they told me some things that are confidential, and I respect that. National Football League, NFL, between $13 and $14 billion of revenue. So you know they're going to ask those guys if we don't have a full season to take a pay cut. Major League Baseball, Big C, about $9 to $10 billion. And even when Manfred said if we don't play at least half a season, we're going to lose about $4 billion. You got to have a lot of money to lose $4 billion, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, that's from prospective revenue that they had projected that they would be earning. And in all facets, Charlton, started from television, started from stadium concessions, you know, to branding and licensing products that they sell. All those things are included when they talk about they're losing money because the fans are not the stand, then they're not going to be consuming any of those products.
That's very well said. NBA, they can't wait to get NBA basketball back. They talk about how great the league is, and it really is a great league, Big C. But the National Basketball Association, they take a back seat to the NFL and Major League Baseball, but they may be more exciting than any sport because it's neck and neck, especially when the Lakers are on their fast break or Showtime back in the day. National Basketball Association, $7 to $8 billion. And I'm saying 7 to 8 because it's been reported, but you know they always put a little tip in your back pocket, like every waiter doesn't report their tips. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, as you look at these leagues, I mean, no one has an accountability of what these leagues are. I mean, they can throw numbers out there, and they can make it sound however they want. And until they open up the books and lay it out there, Charlton, it's all speculation.
It's all speculation, but that's a lot of money. It'd be nice to go to the bank, and in one account you got $13 billion. In the next bank account you got $10 billion. The other bank you got $7.4 billion. In Indian Premier League for cricket, Big C, when I saw crickets, you know, usually they're jumping around in the backyard, but it's a $6.3 billion industry. English Premier Soccer League, the English Premier League, $5.3 billion, and a lot of people are loving soccer, and they're starting to open up a little bit for soccer to come back too. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, there's an itching around the world for people wanting to get outside. I mean, There's people that are discounting the science of COVID and saying, regardless, I'm not going to get it, or if I'm going to get it, I'm going to get it. It's like an emptiness of mind, Charlton. But people, if you have not been touched with it, they don't understand the severity of it.
Yeah.
So as all these leagues are trying to get back into action, we only hear from the media. We're not hearing from the players. As you heard from baseball players today, Connecticut, the pitcher.
Yeah.
He came out and said, "Hey, I'm not going to try to bail the owners out."
I heard that.
Another player said,
Yep.
"I'm not playing for less," pitcher for the Rays.
Yeah.
So we're not hearing the players being dieharded about getting out there.
Yeah.
They signed a contract to make X amount of dollars, just like the owners and the league signed a contract with television to make X amount of revenue.
Yeah.
And they don't want to give it up, just like the owners don't want to give it up.
No, when you got $5.3 billion in that pot, nobody wants to get up. National Hockey League, NHL, $4.43 billion. Australian Rules Football, $2.5 billion. La Liga Spanish Football League, $2.2 billion. And just two more, there's Italian Football League, $1.9 billion. And then you have the Ligue 1, which is Franco and Marco and Football League, and $1.5 billion. There's so much money in the billions when it comes to sports leagues. Just for people that think athletes make too much money, there's hardly any athlete that brings in $1 billion a year. But there's a lot of sport leagues all over the world that do that. I want to jump into...
There's huge corporations all over America
Yep.
and all over the world that bring that up. But as we broadcast these shows now, the listening audience is desensitized. When you talk about 40 million Americans in the last 3 months becoming unemployed, that's the population of California. It's like saying all of California is unemployed right now.
Yeah.
And so when we look at the leagues and how much money the players make and how much money the leagues make, the general fan is just saying, hey, I just want to go back to work.
Yep.
I just want to be able to feed my family. I'm not concerned about that.
Well, that's what we hear, but we don't know. There's a lot of guys saying I can't wait to get sports back. Also, I wanna jump across the pond to Europe, and there's the European Tour plans to resume its season for Golf Big C in the last full weekend of July, with 6 tournaments in England, and then in Wales, including COVID-19 testing. It depends on the United Kingdom lifting its quarantine restrictions. But they're just setting things up. But it all feels like, kind of like the guy coming up to the 18th green. It's like they're going to bogey. They're going over, but they're telling you, everybody was saying really that they wanted to get sports going. I still recall back in April, and there were some people saying in May. Well, we're at the end of May. Now they're still kicking a can down the road. But they are putting something on the table. And at least it's not just the United, it's worldwide. Big C. They're trying to get golf back, seeing what happened with the Tiger Woods and Peyton Manning, Phil and Tom Brady golf tournament. They're thinking that people paid attention because there's not much going on. So it's coming back strong in Europe too. Eventually, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they paid attention because of the names that were playing.
Yeah.
When you turn on a golf program, Charlton, and if you don't have recognizable names, then people don't pay attention. The reason why golf has such high ratings is when Tiger's playing on Sunday. When he's not playing on Saturday and Sunday, the numbers are down 60%.
Yeah.
But when Tiger's playing on Saturday and Sunday, the numbers rise 50 to 60% on those days. And we saw Tiger play on Sunday. They had the largest, broadcast that they've ever had in golf.
Yeah.
But he also had a foursome that everybody knew. And, whether it was Phil Mickelson, whether it was Tom Brady, whether it was Peyton Manning, you had gravitas to the individual.
Yeah.
Everybody had a vested stake that watched that in each one of those athletes. They've all been champions. It's hard to get a foursome where you got that many titles put together. You think about Peyton Manning, 2 Super Bowls, Tom Brady, 6, Tiger Woods, 18 majors that he's won.
15 majors
Phil
right now.
Mickelson's won 7.
Yeah.
So when you think about you're putting over 30 major championships together on a Sunday, that draws by itself.
Yeah, it does draw. Even in the National Hockey League, our friend in Canada, they're talking about they may avoid the 14-day quarantine rules if they can get people back on the ice again, or they just may choose some cities in the United States and bring their athletes down. But this concerns about Canadian, the atmosphere up north and coronavirus restrictions that could push hockey south, and that's probably going to happen because they have a way of saying, hey, there's a lot of money sweeping in. We're going to do these temperature checks the way I got mine when I went to my doctor. And if people are okay, they're going to let them go in because they're going to get sports back. And Canada's doing the same thing here in the United States. They're starting to put their trust in science, even though the propaganda isn't. We got to see the game start right now. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Canada's always been in the forefront of that, Charlton. You think about when the NHL was suspended and they put the quarantine on the players. And they also, Prime Minister Trudeau stated that there were going to be a quarantine. We've never heard that from our president here in this country for athletes to come back in, that there was going to be a 14-day quarantine. Anybody coming from out of the country, you're going to have a 14-day quarantine. We didn't have that in the U.S. So there's a different type of leadership up north, just understanding the science that is governed by the government.
Yeah, there's some cities in the United States that have about 10 finalists. They're talking about Las Vegas, Columbus, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Well, that might be changing as of what's going on right now. Pittsburgh, Chicago, Los Angeles, Toronto, Big C, Vancouver, Edmonton. It will be in the next few weeks that they'll select some of those cities for Eastern and Western Conference brackets, and then hopefully try to meander a way to slide in the Stanley Cup Finals. And then we know it's just a matter of time in science before we get down to what's going to happen in the world of hockey. I know we're going to see sports again. It's going to be scientifically based, and if people don't believe that, they've been talking about sports being back all the way back in April when they shut down in March. I think it was March 11th, and they were saying we're going to be through this in about 30 days or so, but it's pushed on and on and on, and so we know it's going to happen. It's just a matter of how we stay safe. Big C, I want to take what's called the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. Even Will Spencer calls it the Big C pause on CNN, Big C. And when we come back, we're going to talk about some more things going on in sports and also in life, Big C. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on apps that I love called Google or Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he will do his thing from 3,000 miles away. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. I'm going to take a little pause on some of the things happening in sports, but it's also sports related. In Minneapolis, we know what's happened, how horrific it's been with Mr. Floyd being murdered by law enforcement officers. And we even had POTUS chime in and said some things about he's going to make sure that they have a full investigation. But to me, and with all respect for every office, there's been one officer that had 18 complaints against him. Another officer had 6 complaints against him. And as far as POTUS stepping in and saying anything, he's the same president that when he was stomping, he said, beat the hell out of him, and I will pay your legal bills. He also said he could walk down the street and shoot somebody and get away with it. Now, we've seen a man have the hell beat out of him, like choked out with a knee on his neck. We've seen a man shot down in Georgia. But when I listened to what the president's rhetoric was, that's what he said. Beat the hell out of him. He'll pay your legal bills. He can shoot someone walking down the street and get away with it. And this is the same president that when African Americans, Colin Kaepernick primarily, when they were taking a knee to bring attention to racial violence and the Black Lives Matter, this same president said, fire those SOBs. He told the NFL owners, fire those SOBs. We don't care what they're talking about. Just play sports. So now that of the whole world, in fact, the whole universe can see what Colin Kaepernick had talked about has been going on for years. Now he wants to grandstand and say, hey, well, I'm going to make sure I have a full investigation. They're listening to his rhetoric. Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, in America, you're either racist or you're anti-racist. There's no neutral ground in that conversation. You're either racist or you're anti-racist. People are like, whoa, that's pushing the envelope too far. No, that is the envelope. It's two sides of the fence. You're either racist or you're anti-racist. And when you're racist, you allow for these things to occur. I looked at the press conference that they held in Minneapolis today, and it was only lip service.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And when the prosecutor came out there and said, well, there's some evidence shows that they may not be guilty. Okay, so they're telling everybody, don't believe your lying eyes of the crap that you saw on the video.
Yeah.
Don't believe that. There's other stuff that shows that the officers might not be guilty. If the officers weren't guilty, why were they fired immediately?
Yeah.
Okay? In the last 10 years, there's been 11 officers prosecuted in Minneapolis for the death of a citizen.
Yeah.
Okay? In the last 10 years, 11. One conviction in that 10 years, Charlton. You know who that conviction was? It was a black officer who killed a white woman.
Yeah.
A black officer who killed a white woman is the only officer to be convicted in Minneapolis by this same prosecutor. And he bragged about it. Well, I got a conviction on this. Tell the story that he was black. And all the white officers, they got a pass.
Got a pass.
But you convicted a black officer. And when you think about this, Charlton, if you compare this to the actions that occurred in Michigan a couple of weeks ago, when they stormed the Capitol,
that's right,
like militia,
yeah,
and the police did nothing. Nothing. They walked in with automatic weapons, face guard, body armor, everything. They walked in, and the president praised them, telling them, to run the governor out of there.
Yeah.
Take over your state and your city. That's not America, Charlton. These black people and white people in Minneapolis, think about if they had showed up at the Capitol, at the police station, with that type of artillery, Charlton, there would have been a firefight.
Yeah.
And everyone would have said, that they were racist. That's what everybody would have said. And everybody even watching this on television said, these are racial actions. But when you're angry and you have no place to go, that you're captured in, we witnessed this in L.A. years ago after the Rodney King verdict.
Yeah.
Out there when they rioted in Watts or Compton, wherever they were.
Yeah.
And everybody said, well, they're burning down the neighborhood because the police block you in.
Yeah.
They don't let you leave a boundary. They said, so if you're going to destroy, you're going to destroy where you live, not where the other people live. We're going to let you destroy your community.
Yeah. And
these people are frustrated. All they're asking for is justice. And if anybody witnessed this on television, and you can have the gall to say, as the prosecutor said today, well, we're looking for other video.
We need more
evidence.
video. Yeah.
You had the body cams to go along with the videos from the cell phones and the business that had the street camera right there witnessing the whole thing. So you have all the evidence right there. You have the evidence of that officer holding the handcuffs with his right hand. This is one of the reasons why nobody ever saw his right hand come around.
Yeah.
He was holding the handcuffs up with his right hand as he had his knee in this man's throat for 9 minutes, Charlton. The man had stopped breathing when the paramedics showed up. He still would not let the man up. He kept agitating the man. Get in the car. Get up, get in the car.
Yeah.
He said, I will if you take your knee out of my neck.
Yeah.
This is a premeditated, malicious murder, Charlton. And the thing that was bad, all you have to do is probable cause. And you could have arrested those guys today.
Yeah.
Just say probable cause, in any charge that you want to do. You could upgrade it later after you have the grand jury. But you arrest on probable cause is what you arrest on. You don't have to wait 2 weeks, 2 months to do that.
Yeah. Well, when every tree has a root, it starts someplace. And I want to make sure that as I talk to many people, and black and white, about what's going on, I still find that sometimes, even in the most decent white Americans, they'll say, well, I'm shocked that would happen. Like, where have you been? Like, in history.
Because they're complacent to it. What you witness on television, Charlton, 70 years ago, this is the same actions of white Americans. But the police officers wore hoods as part of the Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah.
That they would kill somebody, a black man, they would hang him from a tree and be complacent to what's going on. And that's the same thing that we witnessed this week to Mr. Floyd in Minneapolis. The police officers did a lynching, not with a rope, but with a knee. You talk about covering the MMA all the time and dealing with those guys.
Yeah.
What is the number one submissive move in the MMA, Charlton?
When they really get choked. Get behind you and choke you out.
Yeah. What is the guy that's getting choked? What does he do?
He taps out
right away within seconds.
Taps out. Yep.
Once a guy has him locked, he doesn't want to go beyond 5 seconds once the guy got a lock on his neck.
Yeah.
Because he's starting to lose consciousness, Charlton. Think about it. 9 minutes he held this man down with his feet. Everybody who has watched MMA, Dana White, have these events, when you see somebody getting choked out, they're tapping because they can't breathe.
Yeah.
He couldn't tap, Charlton. He could not tap. His hands were being held behind his back in handcuffs. This officer maliciously killed him. maliciously. This officer's been sued. He's never been prosecuted. He's never been sanctioned.
Yeah.
And now he's going to get away with murder because they're not going to prosecute Charlton. They will find something that justifies what he did, killing this man on television.
Let me ask you a thought on something, because I listen to different people who disagree with me on certain things, and one of my, cohorts or whatever you want to call it, was saying, hey, aren't you happy now that president called a full investigation? And I asked that same gentleman, this is the same president that called for the death penalty for the Central Park Five that were innocent in New York. They were Central Park Five innocent. They were not on videotape, and now you have 4 officers that are on videotape. You think POTUS will call for the death penalty of these officers that murdered a man? Big C, your thoughts?
Oh, no, he won't call for it. If the president was to do this by the book, Charlton, he would have held a press conference. Instead, he sends it out in a tweet, okay? He sends it out in a tweet. And when they gave the press conference in Minneapolis, they didn't have to say that the president and the attorney general involved. They were late coming out there because they needed to get their script right.
Yeah.
They needed to get their script right. They were grandstanding, Charlton. This was, father that they put out there today. And when you have these conversations with your white friends, you need to ask them, if they were white and the cops were black, what would be your feelings on it? You need to flip the script sometime when you're having this conversation with them. You want to know how they really feel because, like I said, the only officer that's ever been convicted of killing a citizen in Minneapolis was a black officer who shot a white woman. Think about this. You get 10 white officers that killed black people, Charlton, in the last 10 years, and nobody's convicted. You get 1 black officer that shoots a white woman, he's convicted. That's 7 years.
Yeah, I remember there was even a white police officer, I think it was down in Texas. She said she thought she was in her own home and she killed an innocent man in his own place. And they, I don't know, they just kind of gave her a pat on the back about it. But life is what it is. I still want to ask this thought, though, because it still irks me. I know people want to watch sports, but even the University of Minnesota, and I think even the Minnesota Vikings and some other sports teams in Minneapolis were saying that they do not want to use the local police department to oversee their games because they know what people on TV don't know. If we didn't see a video camera of a man having an officer's foot on his neck, we wouldn't even be having this conversation today. It would have been just another incident, Big C. But your thoughts on sports teams? Remember, I've been telling you, we need our athletes and our sports team to speak up. You have sports teams saying we don't want them to police our events anymore, Big C. Your thoughts?
I mean, you got to have security at your event. All police officers are not bad.
A lot of good ones.
When you know that you have bad officers, Charlton, you cannot protect them within the unit. That's the problem. And many police associations spoke out today against these officers and their actions.
And that's
but
good.
As long as you have this Blue Shield code protecting each other, Charlton, just like this unwritten rule, you don't turn any. But the Supreme Court allowed this, Charlton, a few years ago.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s, when they overturned some laws and allowed for police officers to have anonymity, that you could not prosecute them, Charlton, for killing people. And when they did that, it became open season. And so after that, Charlton, this is the reason why the guys weren't convicted on Rodney King.
Yeah.
Because the Supreme Court had okayed this. And when you looked at the Supreme Court at that time, you looked to see who was on there. Wasn't any black people represented. And even with Clarence Thomas, there's only 1 black vote, period. But until people live in certain situations, and that's why I said earlier when we started this, you're either racist or you're anti-racist. There's no middle ground in this, Charlton. And when people start making excuses, they're telling you that they're racist.
Yeah.
When they start making excuses, when they see a crime committed, they're telling you that they're racist because they're trying to make an excuse for the assailant in this situation. That's a racist act. Just like the president has gone through and said, there were good people from neo-Nazis, the Ku Klux Klan, to, anti-Semites, everybody.
Yeah.
When they were killing people, the president said they were good people. Even the people in Michigan, a couple of weeks that went on in the ascent of the Capitol.
Yeah, many of them.
Their arms. The police didn't shoot them. They were white. The police didn't draw out. They didn't arrest anybody, Charlton. They didn't arrest anybody because they were white. They allow that with white people. So even the police in that situation, you're either racist or you're not racist.
Well, I thought when Minnesota governor activates National Guard over protests of the murder of George Floyd, by police officers. I think U.S. Attorney General Erica McDonald, she held a press conference. But it's ironic they held a press conference without an arrest being made. So if there's no arrest being made, why are you holding a press conference? Does that make any sense to you, Big C? Your thoughts?
Like I said, that was just father. They come out there blowing smoke. They were making an excuse already. Think about that. You can. This is what the thing probable cause is, Charlton, that the police use all over this country. You charge somebody with the lesser charge that you can charge somebody with.
Yeah.
And you can set the bail at whatever you want.
Yeah.
Once you go to the grand jury, you can always go in, re-indict, and update the charges. That's the reason why you have probable cause. And you can ask any defense attorney about that in America, that they have clients that have been hit with probable cause hundreds and hundreds of times.
Yeah.
And then the police will go back and reassess, reevaluate, either drop the charges or upgrade the charges. And we saw this. So that's all you need to do. They say they wanted to get it right. They're trying to find an excuse out of this because they're asking for additional videotape if anybody has it to help exonerate.
Like, what more do you need?
And then when the lead prosecutor said, well, we can't prove that this was not, acceptable.
Yeah.
Because we can't prove that, that he used excessive force. What he did wasn't right. When you make that statement and you haven't charged anybody, you told everybody today, these guys are going free.
Yeah, it seems like they've already set the tone for that. So if it was a guy on the ground, say a Sean Hannity or a Rush Limbaugh, or let's say, just being candid, what if it was Donald Trump where someone had the knee on his neck for 9 minutes, whether he was a citizen or that would not even be allowed to happen. And so it was really stunning to me that they come out and the Attorney General came out and held a press conference when there hadn't even been an arrest made. And then let me ask you, this is to me, everybody has their own opinion. I was hearing some politicians, and you said we got to get politicians involved, and we need both, is my opinion. What is Jesse Jackson going to do coming into Minneapolis? He's from Illinois, I believe. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, not too far from the Midwest, Charlton. He's in that hotbed where all it is. He's a friend of the Attorney General of the state, who is an African American also. So he requested that Jesse comes in and hopefully can bring in a calmer voice. Al Sharpton was also in there today, Charlton. But you have to have some calmness, some people with stability to speak, because you get the outsiders. It's not the people who live right there. It's the outsiders who come in and start vandalizing everything, Charlton, not the people who live in those neighborhoods. And that's what people need to understand. When you watch the protest yesterday, those were locals protesting outside the police station.
Yeah.
Then you get all the outsiders come in while the police are distracted and start vandalizing the place. This is what happened. So they're trying to get a calmness in there. But, the move today by the Attorney General not the Attorney General, but the governor, to bring in the National Guard, that means you're trying to escalate this. But if that had been a dog on the street and a black man had his knee on the dog's neck, Charlton, the police would have came in and saved the dog. Trust me, they would have came in and saved the dog.
I want to...
In Central Park over the weekend,
a
white lady who was walking with her dog, and the dog went after a black man that was bird watching, and he said, put your dog on a leash. And he's videoing all this.
Yeah.
She called the police and told the police that he was threatening her. The police showed up and would have probably arrested him if not for him having the video.
Yeah.
But video worked to save him on that. But video doesn't help. We've become immune to video, Charlton. We've seen it too many years, and we see that the actions and the consequences are going to be the same. Every time there's a bad action by an officer, you had it out there in your area a couple of years ago where they shot the young man in his grandparents' backyard.
Yeah.
The first thing they said, turn off the body cam.
Yeah.
First thing they said, turn off the body cam. Nothing happened to those officers.
That's amazing. I don't know what the answer is other than dialogue. I am pleased about one thing, Big C, that I've heard over the last couple of days. This goes back to what happened in Georgia, and then even, unfortunately, what just happened with Mr. Floyd.
How long did Georgia take place, Charlton?
Yeah, that's 2 months ago?
It took them 2.5 months.
Yeah.
To do an arrest.
Right, but what I'm saying is, when I've been hearing is even some of our, because the media is owned by white Americans, okay? They're the ones who don't see their grandparents or their parents or their brothers and sisters choked out or shot for going out jogging, or a police officer with his knee on his neck for 9 minutes and kills a guy, and then the state people come out there and say, well, we may have other proof that it was justifiable. They don't see that with little white kids laying on the ground with guns pointed. They don't see that, so they can pretend it doesn't exist. But what I have heard from some of the media that I've heard, even on a national level, even some of the decent white Americans, they're saying this is not right. Now, I'm not saying that's going to solve it, but what I am saying is this, and I want your thoughts, but maybe you don't have the answer. Racism is learned. You don't come out of the womb being racist. But something happens from out of the womb to in the home of people that start decoding and breaking down these social differences that tell a white lady in the park that she can file a false police report and say it's a black man, and the police will show up. Willie Horton, the president's running for office, Willie Horton letter. We've seen that before. So even this fake birth certificate garbage that POTUS was pushing out there for white Americans who think that way, and it's worked. So what can they tell us that they're being taught in the home that makes it come out and manifest itself? Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, is as simplistic as I've been saying. You're either racist or you're anti-racist. There's no in between. When you're born neutral, okay?
Yeah.
That's because you have no knowledge. But once you get knowledge and you take the path of one or the other, Charlton, of either being racist or anti-racist. You're not sitting there and saying, okay, well, on this incident, I'm going to be racist. On this one, no, I'm going to be anti-racist. When you see this occurring, like I said, all people have to do is change the complexion of those people. If that's a white man on the street with a black officer with his knee in his neck until he succumbs, okay?
Yeah.
In the last 10 years, there's been one officer convicted in Minneapolis. This officer, Charlton, happened to be African-American.
Yeah.
The lady that he shot was white, and he had a complaint, and that's the reason why he answered this complaint of a burglary, okay?
Yeah.
This is what happened. 10 white officers have been exonerated in trial. The black officer, they made an example out of him.
Yeah.
So when it's black officer on white citizen, you're a criminal. But when it's a white officer on a black citizen, it's acceptable. You didn't use excessive force. Whatever you did was warranted because you wouldn't have done it if they hadn't done something so atrocious.
Yeah, there's a book by John Howard Griffith called Black Like Me. It was written about 50 years ago, and it chronicled a white man that darkened his skin and went into this apple. He was treated the way that whole culture has been allowed to fester. It's like a fire. You don't put out the fire all the way, it keeps festering, and it may reignite again. And I would just want to know if Tim Wise, he's another gentleman that wrote a book about white skin privilege, because there has to be a solution to it, even if it happens 50 years down the road. I was just saying, over the years, is we have true dialogue the way you and I do. It doesn't mean people like it, but the more there's true dialogue, I told you, white Americans will steal your content. I'm just being factual. They've been talking about this more and more since we bring it up, but they're going to get off of it soon. They'll throw a curveball, but I at least appreciate when people don't put their head in the sand. I want to ask you one more thing, and I appreciate you saying that Jesse Jackson was called in, by, I believe you said the mayor or the governor.
The Attorney General.
The Attorney General. And I appreciate what Jesse Jackson has done over the years, but I hope they don't just bring Jesse Jackson in and say, hey, let's placate these people while we don't press charges. I mean, charges need to be filed. They can post bail, and then you can go through it, but that's the thing that the Supreme Court has to deal with. So last thing I want to ask you about this, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more, are you surprised that no charges, as of yet, have been brought in the murder of George Floyd? Big C, your thoughts?
I was hurt that there was no charges filed. It wasn't that I was surprised. I was hurt. It left me speechless because they came out, and I knew once they were late for the press conference, is that they had made up an excuse, the reason why they were not going to charge these officers. And when you start saying that we have to investigate this, we need more evidence. Now, if that had been a normal citizen that had killed somebody on the street, he would have been arrested and locked up on probable cause. Whether they had the facts or not, they charged him with probable cause of murder or manslaughter and then dealt with the proceedings from that point, Charles.
Yeah.
We witnessed this.
Yeah.
And when you come in as a city and you fire these individuals because they had done something egregious, just like the mayor said, what they did was not in the police handbook.
Yeah.
They went beyond the police handbook. And I remember the police chief said the first day, well, the guy was resisting arrest until the videotape came out. Once the videotape came out, he could no longer say that they were resisting arrest.
Yeah.
And so when this press conference was an hour late today, I'm like, they're building a story.
Yeah.
They're building up a defense for these police officers. And then the lead prosecutor said You know, there's evidence to show that what they did was not a crime. What evidence? I mean, show it to us. I mean, let the court of public opinion, if they're going to be on trial, it's going to be the court of public opinion.
Yeah.
You're going to have private citizens in there. Let everybody see what they did that was not a crime. What did we not witness on the video? You released the body cams today, but you block everything out. If you block everything out, that meant that there was evidence showing that they went beyond what they needed to do in the call of duty.
Yeah.
So I felt at the end of the press conference the way I felt when the press conference was an hour late, that these guys were going to get their butts off.
Well, it may be the case. I am somewhat, if it makes any sense, what I feel like. Why does it matter what I feel? I'm 2,000 miles away. But I did see a lot of white Americans who were also holding up signs, Black Lives Matter, and saying that the police were wrong.
But who was having the press conference?
Yeah.
They weren't speaking at the press conference.
Yeah,
They
that's
were
true.
not speaking at the press conference.
Yeah.
This guy has been on the force 19 years. He has 18 complaints
18.
from private citizens. He got fired. You know what all those police officers did today, Charlton?
What's that?
They invoked their Fifth Amendment right because they were no longer protected by the badge.
Oh, really?
They pulled a Mark Furman, so they cannot testify against each other. That's collusion. So they took their Fifth Amendment right.
I
So
didn't
the
know that.
only evidence is the guy who cannot speak because he's deceased, and the videotape.
Yeah.
And they're going to convince people that the videotape doesn't tell the whole story.
Yeah.
And yet the police officers are not going to talk, but they're going to tell you what you see on the videotape does not represent all the actions that day.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when we start seeing our white American brethren, men and women, being choked out, having the police with his knee on your dad's neck for 9 minutes, or your brother's or your son's neck or your grandchild's neck for 9 minutes, and saying that the white kids resisting arrest, when we start seeing that, and then we have people say, well, they must have done something wrong. Can you believe how they're tearing down the city and they're burning down buildings? I can't believe they're burning down buildings. There was a thing when, I think it was Michael Vick, when he was arrested for the thing with the dog fighting and they were killing dogs. There were some people saying that give him the death penalty because they killed some dogs. At the same time, you'll find people, we've already heard it today, there might be some evidence to show that it really wasn't a crime and that the police did say that he was justified in his homicide. I just think that's horrible. How in the world can you get people to believe and trust in law enforcement when you can show even the white Americans that you can do things and get away with it as long as you have enough time to justify it? And I just hope, to me, I don't even know what to say other than you still got to have some faith, because there is some good law enforcement, but we're seeing right now racism 101 in 2020, and I just hope that we have justice where people can see the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So help me God. Mix your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, this is the third time in the last month that we've had to witness this as American citizens, that black people were killed doing nothing. And we've seen the Arbery case in Georgia, the young lady who was a paramedic in St. Louis, where police were doing a raid and broke into the wrong apartment, Charlton.
Yeah.
They broke into the wrong apartment, and her boyfriend, who was licensed to carry, pulled up his gun, because if somebody kicks in your door, he takes his gun out.
Yeah.
They shoot her 8 times, Charlton. She was a paramedic. They go to the wrong building. Nobody was charged because they went to the wrong building. They had bad information.
Yeah.
And then we witnessed Mr. Floyd being killed in Minneapolis. So as a black person, how can you say there's equal justice? As a white person, how can you say there's equal justice? So when somebody's sitting in their apartment and the police kick in the door, and you get up to defend yourself because they don't make an announcement.
No.
And then you shoot both people inside the apartment over 8 times each, and you say, well, it's justified because you went to the wrong place. You mentioned the officer in Dallas who went to the wrong apartment and shot a man when he came to the door with a bowl of cereal in his hand because he lived there.
Yeah.
And the story was she went to the wrong apartment.
Yeah.
I still don't buy that. I don't think she went to the wrong apartment. Police officers know where they're
No, they're not
all
that,
the time.
They're not that dumb.
And so, like I said earlier, if that had been a dog on the street, Charlton, with a black man holding that dog down, beating it, people would have came to that dog assistance. And you mentioned that with Michael Vick. People were trying to give Michael Vick life in jail for dog fighting.
Yeah.
It goes on in the South all the time
Yeah.
in the backwoods.
Yeah.
Michael Vick was just part of what was going on. He just happened to be a face that they could put to it.
Yeah.
But they wanted to give Michael Vick life for dog fighting.
You know, it's a crazy world. We're told to trust the justice system, and we gotta trust and hope that we can see things that are transparent Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
You know, you're always saying that athletes need to speak up about social justice and social injustice. If athletes ever really want to have a voice, stand up and say, we're not going to play until we get justice.
Isn't that the truth? Kirk Cousins, you like that? You like that? You're in Minnesota. They gave you $84 million. Come out and say this is not right. We want justice. We want transparency. They gave you $84 million. Are you going to do it? Big C, back in the day, we talked about Drew Boudini Brown. I wanted to say happy graduation to my son and everybody else that's graduating 2020. It's all good. May everything you want to have in your life come true. Everybody needs to have that. I want to say you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. As we always tell you, that's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.